we go. Wonderful. Well, thank you again for all coming. This is one of my favorite things to do for either a late dinner for myself and my husband, or if my kids are already adults, I don't know how that happened, but also to bring to a party, because, sometimes you go to a party and you don't know what's going to be there to eat. And I can bring something I know I'm going to like, right? And a variety of things. So when you're making, a board, the first thing that I always do, the first step, and I've got somebody stepping in here. The first thing that I do when I consider putting together a charcuterie board, I like to call them grazing boards or tapa boards, because technically a charcuterie board is just the cured meat part. I trained in France, so I'm a little, picky on the wording, but the trend is to call everything a charcuterie board, and we'll stick with that tonight. But the first thing I like to think about is the purpose, right? So who am I feeding, and what kind of a party are we going to for this? So you've probably had the experience that you've walked into some kind of event, and there is a beautiful cheese or meat board, or any kind of fruit and vegetable board, and you can't get the cheese. It's still left in a big chunk, so especially if people are going to have like a plate in their hands or a glass of wine, I really like to make sure everything is cut so that people can take it easily, gracefully. And I also like to think of like who's going to be in attendance, right? Is it going to be people who love, cheese or cured meats, or, do I happen to know that some of the guests might have some kind of food allergy or preference, that I can kind of skew everything that way. So that's the first thing I kind of think about. And that kind of guides my purchases at the store. And as I was saying a few minutes, before we started, I often will just pull leftovers out. So I have like, 6 snap peas. They'll look really pretty at the end on this. And I've got a couple of these little peppers. So I just pull out some leftovers. But, today I wanted to have some beautiful cured meats, and I have a couple cheeses. I want to show you how to style some different kinds of cheeses. So, that was my purpose. Tonight was mostly like a demo style. So I'm going to put I think I showed you before. I have this big tray of stuff on my workspace in front of me that I just wanted to show you. So I actually did buy these. I was looking for something yellow and green, and these are called golden berries. You might see them at the store. They're actually Cape gooseberries is the actual name of them. They've rebranded them as golden berries. And they're a little tart, they're kind of like a grape that is on the sour side. But I had a few radishes hanging around. We like to eat radishes with salsa. I've always got a jar of olives in my refrigerator. I have a few nuts sitting around. I have some walnuts, and I have some pecans. I might even tell you my secret pecan recipe if you guys are really nice. I always like to have, even though these aren't in season and I'm kind of a seasonal nut, some cherry tomatoes are always really pretty on a board. One of my favorite fruits, also very festive, I think, are raspberries. So I bought some raspberries. Then I'm really fortunate. I have a tangerine tree out front, so I pulled a tangerine. So these are just some things I pulled together. I'm going to get them out of the way because I will use those to fill the tray. So that's not going to be my, here I am. That's not going to be where I start. I'm going to start by placing my meats and cheeses. All right. So let's, again, just go back to our purpose and think about our gathering. Like, how many people are we bringing for? And is this going to be like the main thing we're eating? Or is this going to be something we're eating before a meal? In which case, I'm sure however much you bring, they'll eat, but you don't want to spoil people's appetites for the meal. So, think about, do you want to have a big board? So I keep a couple boards on hand here. I have this kind of biggish board that I use. I really like this little one that's round. And in fact, I'm going to use this round one tonight. It's like this big. I'd say it's about 14 inches across. But then, if you're making a nice little intimate, board for somebody that you care about, that you want to share a bottle of champagne with, you can go as small as like a little board. You can also build these on a plate. You could put them on a sheet tray. By the time we fill in and put everything around on this, it doesn't matter what's underneath, really. I just tend to grab, because I have a bunch of extra cutting boards. You can use a platter. Like I said, I've seen the most beautiful boards just on a regular cookie sheet, because we're going to talk about covering that. So does everybody have kind of like the idea of what they're going to build on and like who they're building for? or if you have like something non-traditional that's going on.
Yes, actually, Barbara and I are, because by the time we're done, it'll be 8 o'clock or so, which is too late for us to eat. So we have invited a few ladies over to Barbara's house for tomorrow early afternoon, and we are going to share our masterpieces with them.
Lovely.
Yes.
Great.
So I have a question because I'm doing a vegetarian board
Mhm.
and I have hummus and such. Should I just put the bowls rather than filling them tonight? Just put the bowls
Yes.
and fill them tomorrow?
So you could kind of do it either way. You can place the bowls, and we'll talk about, the placement in a minute or two. Or you could put, your hummus or your various things in the bowls already. You just have to cover them with a little more plastic wrap. So, to save on extra plastic or whatever, you could just keep the hummus in the container it came in and just have your container set out. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you could go either way, If, for example, you were going to some event that was going to butt right up until when your friends were coming over to do this, I would tend to have it all, prepared. So I could just rip off the, plastic or beeswax wrap or whatever I use on it.
Okay.
That's great. Okay, so I think that at Stephen's Kitchen, you guys are going to have a big board, right? You got a lot of people there. So you're probably going to aim for something a little more substantial. Feel like? You don't have to answer. Well, you're probably on mute. It's okay. And as we're kind of a small group, please feel free to thumbs up. Please feel free to call stuff out. It's fine. All right. So I am going to start. So I have in mind the design that I want, and I'll talk about it as we go, but I'm thinking of a wreath shape. So I have a circle board, which is just a little bit easier to work with. And in fact, when I was kind of like going around, I was looking for stuff that I could use to accessorize my board. And I have this one giant snowflake that makes really pain in the butt cookies because the tips all fall off. So I rarely use it to actually make cookies, but it's a beautiful decoration for a buffet or something like this. So I will eventually put this in the middle here and put everything around it. So that's kind of what I'm thinking as I'm cutting what I'm cutting. So let's start with cheese, because what I like to do when I do this is I cut the cheeses that I have and start to think about how they might fill out my board. So I wanted to show you one cute little idea here. I have some goat cheese, like a log of goat cheese, which is kind of messy on a board. It's sort of, well, you can see it's kind of fallen apart and sort of broken up here. But I really like goat cheese. And so I found that I can take a little spoonful like this and roll it into a little ball. So if you have some kind of a soft cheese that you really love, you could even do this with cream cheese or flavored cream cheese. You can still use it on a board, but I would make a little individual portion. And then because I'm making kind of a festive board, on some of them, I rolled them in tahine, which is that, spicy, lemony thing that we put on mango margaritas. So I've got some that are a little bit red. And then I have an herb called za'atar, which is the greenest thing that I had. And so to do that, I just put it on a plate. Whoops, I smashed one. And I just kind of roll it around in there. So now I have some little, this is how I'm styling my softest gushy cheese. So, this could be that boursin, that cheese that's like spreadable. You could do the same thing with that. And you don't necessarily have to put it in herbs. I just sort of like the way it looks. So now I've got some little red and green goat cheese balls that I'll eventually put on my board. And Barb, I like these little containers that aren't too deep. So this is something you could use to like make a placeholder for your hummus or your other dips too later. Okay, so that is my really soft cheese. And let's see, now let's go to the opposite. I have a really hard cheese and I picked it for the color. This is a French cheese called Mimolette. It's a very, very aged cheddar. But I love the color and I wanted to be able to bring some of this color onto my board. So now that I've lost my knife, here it is. What I'm going to do is first remove, because remember, I'm always thinking about like, I don't want to put anything that's too inedible on the board. I mean, I will leave like the end rind often, especially if it's one of those that has a really pretty, like Manchego has that basket weave on the end. I'll leave that on there, but I'm going to cut this piece off I'm going to try to cut off the least amount that I can there. And I'm going to keep this one in this triangle shape. Whoops, I missed a piece. It's a good thing I was on camera. I wouldn't have known that. So I'm going to, it comes in this natural triangle shape. So because it's a little crumbly, I can't cut it super, super thin, but I'm going to make some pretty little wedges. So any hard cheese that comes in sort of a wedge that came out of a circle is really great to style this way. Specifically, like manchego is very popular. You've probably seen it, wherever you are. It's a Spanish sheep's milk cheese. I'm just going to go ahead and cut this whole thing, even though this is really a little too much for what I want. But the cheese will already be cut, and I'll have some more pieces to show you. So now that I have that cut, there's a lot of ways I could put it on the board eventually. I could just fan it like that. I mean, that would look nice. You can take every other piece and put the tall piece toward you, and then the other one, the tall piece is away, toward you, away, toward you, away. And that looks really nice on the board, like so. And it also is sort of nice. People can pick one up without having to, to get them all stuck to each other. So that's one way that I could do that. Another way that I could do it, aside from just that fan, is they're not as pointy as like manchego, but I could fan them out like this too. So if I had a bigger board where I've got a lot more space to fill up, that's one thing that you can do. If you've picked a really big board, you can use your cheese and kind of make it a bigger piece of the display. That way you can fill a little bit more space. And again, it's easy for people to pick that up, which I really like. So let's just gather that and put it over here. So that will go onto my board eventually. I have, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to taste this cheese. Do you know those peppadew peppers, the little red round ones that they usually have in the Olive Bar at the grocery store? They're kind of sweet. They're not too spicy. This is a peppadew cheese. So it's got those peppers in it. And it is a New York State cheese, which I'm not really sure what that means. Maybe Barb knows. But it has some wax on the side, like a Gouda, that I'm just going to remove. All right, and so knowing that I've already got one piece that's kind of a triangle, I'm not going to try to keep this into a triangle shape. I think I'll make this one into maybe little rectangles. So I'm just going to remove half of it. I don't need really all this cheese. So I've cut this into some chunks. I turn it on the side, and I'm going to try to keep this parallel, like so. It's a little sticky, this cheese. So again, what I'm aiming for is if somebody picks this up, they can make 2 bites out of it. They're not wedded to it. It's not going to be their cheese, for the rest of the night by accident. So I'm cutting some nice two bite pieces out of that. And now out of these rectangular pieces, there's a lot of different ways. One of my favorites is I call it Jenga. So you can make this, crisscross like that. That adds a lot of visual interest to where the cheese is. Let me just get a couple more pieces. Ta-da. So just rectangles. One thing that I really don't like, and I know this is just me, I'm a little bit, probably have a little bit of snob factor. I don't like it when the cheese is in cubes. For one thing, you go to the grocery store, you buy it, it's already in a cube, right? And okay, that's not awful. But when you put a cube of cheese in your mouth, the flavor's hiding in your mouth. You're not, it's the warmth and saliva of your mouth that starts to like make the cheese flavor happen. And if you just pop a whole cube in there, I really don't feel like you get as much flavor and enjoyment out of the piece of cheese that you do have. It's really easy to eat too much cheese then too, right? So, I'm always trying to like find the right amount, to eat and not overeat it. So maybe that's just me. I don't know. So, I could do this in the Jenga. I could, make all sorts of different patterns with my little rectangles, right? So this is kind of a semi-soft cheese. It's bendable, foldable. I got one extra there. Before I come to my brie, I just want to show you, I have a particular love on a cheese board or a charcuterie board. I love Parmesan cheese. And one thing I love about it is that it's just salty and it's almost like a palate cleanser for me. It's got all that umami to it. And again, really what I do not want is to have sharp edges because they're not going to melt in my mouth in the right way. So what I like to do with, and this is really hard. This is not in any way a soft cheese, is I like to make chunks. So I'll take a knife, and this is a knife that's a little bit dull on the end. It got broken, so I use it like this, and I just pry pieces out like that. And this is like a broken chunk look. So you see, these are very imperfect. Let's see if I can get a better view on this camera. Where are we? These pieces are very, very imperfect. They're not regular in any way. And that's exactly what I want, because all of these little micro edges are really going to taste great. They're going to really lead in your mouth with the flavor. And they add a lot of visual interest to the board. So I definitely want to get a nice little pile of these chunks. And, if you're ever in the position of needing to fill up kind of a big area of a board, maybe you've committed to bring something for a bigger event, this can be a good way to do it. All right, so I'm going to make a nice little pile of it's actually making my mouth water, to be honest. And now you probably can break this. It depends on how old and aged the cheese is. You might be able to break it up with your hands, but if not, my tip is I stick my knife in like that, and then I lever it forward to get those pieces to come out. I'm going to eat one. I got to eat it. Okay. So let me get that away. And now I have a little baby brie. And for a display like this, it is very hard to have a traditional ripe French cheese because it's oozy, right? It should flow out of its exterior, right? So one thing to know, I did an internship. I did a cheese internship in Hudson Valley a long time ago. Cheeses like this, there's nothing added to the outside of this cheese to get the rind on a brie or a camembert. That's just how the enzymes have reacted with the cheese itself. So this is 100% edible. I see a lot of people will remove that from a brie, but there's no reason to do that. That is edible. Unlike, this, sometimes these waxes are added. And on this, that really dark one, they'll probably have added a little bit of wax to that outside as well. But this is 100% edible. So the easiest way to cut this for eating is in wedges. So I'm going to cut it. And you notice it's just easier for me to cut forward. So I'm moving the cheese in the orientation that I want to cut. I think I'm going to make small pieces here too, because I have a big variety of cheese. So I'm cutting my quarters into thirds just to get some nice pieces. And if you find that they're sticking to your knife, you can refrigerate it for a little bit longer if you have the time. But all of these cheeses are going to taste the best at room temperature. So that's another tip that I have for you is don't keep this in the refrigerator too long. You want to have a nice room temperature cheese. And you don't really need to worry about cheese spoiling. In France, we keep cheese on the counter forever. Like nobody refrigerates a cheese. They're all good. So now I've got my brie cut into some little wedges. And there's a lot of ways we can style that on the board too. I can put it back into its circle shape by leaving some gaps in the middle. That way they won't all stick back together. And I can make it into two. Oh my goodness, I just took a little crumble of this. This is a goat cheese brie. I'm gonna have a very heavy goat influenced board here. So see, I can put my one little brie back together in two. And again, I have a little bit more value. You can also pull them apart a little bit and put something cute in the middle, like one of those guys, right? Make it into like a little flower shape. All right. Okay, so that is styling the cheeses. So I like to get my cheeses all cut and ready to go. Let me get them out of the way a little bit. And then let's talk about the meats. And then I'm actually going to get the board over and we'll start placing things. So these are the things that I like to have pre-prepared, ready to go. So I picked out for myself, Trader Joe's has this great charcuterie variety pack, which is a great price. And in it, it's got a salami, a copa, and a sopressata, which is a slightly spicy ham as well. So I have this really cute salami, this really nice whole meat copa, and the sopressata. You can tell which one's the sopressata because it's got the red, it's got the spicy like paste around it. So once again, I would not want to put that on my board just like that. For a couple of reasons. It's not very pretty. And it's also very hard for people to get it, oops, sorry about that, an individual piece. So one way, and you've probably seen this, I can, oh, this is really thin. Let me see how many pieces I can get off here. I think this is the most, like that one's stuck together. I've got it like a circle, an empty circle of salami. One of the most guest-friendly ways to serve this, and I know, I'm definitely on the chef side and not always on the food styling side. I just think it's important to eat good food. So if I fold my salamis in quarters like this, it's easy for people to select one or two without feeling like they've got to pick up an entire, half piece of salami. And then there's a lot of things we can do with that. So these are even, they're sliced so thinly, they're even hard for me to use with my hands. And, people aren't going to have their hands on your board, probably, you hope. Okay, so I've got these little folds. I can put them together like this. So when I put them on the board, I can just set them together and they make a really pretty rosette, just like that. And then when people want some, as they pick it, they're just getting one piece, which I think is really guest friendly. But you can also, I've got this folded in a quarter like this. I can take its friend, I can just start to make a snake with it. So I put this one here and I'm folding that over like that. And then I'll do the same on the other side. So you can make some longer arrangements that will stand up and maybe make a border around if you want to. Okay, and then there's the infamous rose, the salami rose. Have you guys made a salami rose before? All right, let me show you. Here's the easy way to do that. So I have my salamis and I'm laying them out slightly overlapping. So see that there's one, here's one, here's one. I think I'll go 5. These are kind of long, big. And then I'm just going to simply fold them in half. My kids would have called this a hot dog fold. So they're just going like this, but I'm not going to try to meet the edges exactly. I have the bottom edges here and the top edge is up here. So I'm leaving a little gap between the top and the bottom edge. And then I just roll this up. And I'm going to roll it kind of loosely. All right, so I've just rolled it. And now I have this, which is kind of a tightly closed salami rose. And I can bend back because I rolled it loosely and I haven't lined them up exactly. I can bend some of the petals back and open up the rose a little bit. Okay, so what I want to say about this is it is attractive on your charcuterie board, but it does make a little bit of a challenge for the guest, unless you have somebody who loves to eat giant chunks of meat, which I don't know, I do, but okay. So there's that. Okay, here's something I love. What do you think of that? There's a little bow that I made out of a piece of salami. So while we're on the salami, let me show you this. I have these, remember these from when you were a kid, you put a black olive on every finger? It's too hard to stuff it through the hole directly, but what I will do is make a cut down the side of the olive so that it is broken on one side like that. And then let me find a piece of salami. I'm just going to gather it up in the middle like it's a little bow tie. And I'm going to pop the olive over the top of it like so. So now I have a little salami bow tie. And I think those are really fun. Now, I wouldn't want to do that to all of them because then somebody's like touching all your food, but they do make really attractive little decorations to the side. So I like that one a lot. And then here's another thing. I did a couple of these in advance. You can also make a little cone out of the salami and you can put something inside. So the way that you would do a little cone, and again, I wouldn't want to do this with all the salami unless you're, a big caterer and you've got, this is just what people ordered. But I'm making a 1 radius cut here in the salami. Let me pull these out of the way so you can see better. One little radius cut right to the middle. And that way I can roll the salami around like that and make a cone. So it's a great place. I could put some of that. Well, you know what? I could drop one of my goat cheeses in there. I could put what do I have back here on my little board of wonders? There's a lot of things I could put in there. I could take a little, so what I've done here in advance is I put a black olive in the middle. Actually, a black olive would be nice in there too. I could break one of these olives, just put a half of an olive, and I could put a little goat cheese in there. And now these stick together pretty well. You don't really need to put a pick through them. But if you do choose to put a pick, don't use a plain old toothpick. They're very hard to find. So I found these little toothpicks, they have shells on them. I got this at World Market. You can also get these kind of larger picks that are hard to not see. These are great if you have some seafood or whatever too. But if you're putting a toothpick in something you're serving to a guest, you want to make sure that toothpick is visible so that they're not accidentally stabbing themselves in the back of their throat. Like all the safety tips you get too. So this is a salami one. I put some tomato and a piece of olive in there. What else did I do? I feel like I did one other salami. Yeah. So here's the other thing I really like to do. And one of the reasons I like to do this again is just for the comfort of my guests. So here I have a little pick that has a piece of salami that all I did was fold it in half. And then I put an olive in it. And I think in this case, I had a little piece of mozzarella, but I could put a little piece of one of these other cheeses, my little peppadew cheese. And I made a little shape out of that. And I picked it. And I think I'm going to put part of this olive on the outside. So I made a little bite. So now I've got a little salami bite. It has a little cheese and a little olive all together. So once again, my guests can just pick that up. They don't have to only eat like salami all by itself. So I've got a salami rose. I have a salami bow tie here. I have the pick with something in the middle, and I have little cones. So when you've got something that's easy to roll, like a salami, you can do those little bites. And I really like that. As a guest, I always appreciate that. This looks great. The rose looks great when you first put it on the board, but it starts to, as people try to get at it, it starts to disintegrate. So this copa can be styled exactly the same way. Or I can just take this and make it into like a fold, like a fan fold, like that, and lay it out. And that's probably what I'll do. I like to separate the meat by its, I try not to make the same shape with different kinds of meat. That way people can find it again if they like it. So this, I'm just making it like an S curve and then bringing it over so that it makes a more compact piece of meat to put on the plate. Make a couple more of those. And then I want to show you what for me is always the most difficult thing to style is prosciutto, because it's sliced so thinly, it falls apart so easily. Didn't open this package ahead of time. And, this is the one that you really don't want somebody to just come and take the whole thing because, this is like 8 slices of prosciutto. This is probably, $15. So I'm going to take one of the slices of prosciutto. And you find that it often falls apart like that. That's okay. Maybe I'll try to move some of these things out of the way so you can see better. So this little piece fell off. So for this prosciutto, I'm going to fold it in half, but I'm also going to cut it in half so I get more pieces out of this. So I've taken my one long piece of prosciutto, I've done that hot dog fold, cut it in half. And now I'm just going to make, again, like a wave out of it that will set up like this. So one of the nice things about prosciutto is it's a little sticky with the fat, and so you can make it stand. So see, I'm just kind of pleat folding it and pinching it at the bottom, and it will sort of stand up like that. Because if that prosciutto lays down in there on the board too much, it's just going to be all stuck together. And I'll probably spread it out just a little bit. Okay. Do the same with this last piece. And then let's start to get the board together. Maybe I want to, try to fold these the same way. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to try for a wreath shape. So I have this round board. Now I can certainly make a circle. Need to move my little guys here so you can see. I can make a circle shape on any board at all. So if I wanted to make a tree shape, I could just aim everything I'm making into a triangle. And you could start, like I have a rosemary bush, which is just really great, but you can buy rosemary pretty inexpensively, and you could, just start to build your shape like this on the outside so that as you place what you want in the middle, you've got that shape. One thing that I really like to do, and I think this comes from like years of catering, is I like to put something down on the board first. And in this case, because I want this to end up looking like a wreath, which is usually some kind of evergreen, I have some baby spring mix. And this is really great, especially if you're using a tray that's not very attractive. Like this one, actually, it looks okay on the camera, but it's pretty scuffed up from, years of use. So I'm going to build up a little circle of arugula on the outside here. Now, the other thing that this does, and any caterer will tell you, that you want height, color, and visual interest, when you're putting something out for display. So already on my board, it already looks cute. I've got these little, maybe too cute. I've got these little stems that are sticking out. But it gives me a little height. It gives me an interest, and it gives me a shape that I'm going to go for. And I think that I am going to put my big snowflake cookie cutter there in the middle. And let's see. I feel like the lighting on this camera is not helping with this. Let me see if I can get that better. Then the other thing that I like is, and I think I'll do this at the end, is these rosemary pieces do look a little bit like evergreen tree. So what I may do is try to stick them out on the edges like so that they stick out on the edge, but I'm going to wait for that. So what I have right now is a round board with some arugula and a big cookie cutter in the middle. Anybody have questions before I move on to what I'm doing? Or like a product that you've purchased, or a cheese or a meat that you can't quite figure out? Yeah, Barb, they're trying to unmute. I can tell. It's okay.
Very interesting. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I have, it's a non-dairy cheese. It sits out. So I did cut off the tops of some cherry tomatoes and stuff in some of this, but I don't know what else to do with it.
Is this the one you have?
Yes. Exactly.
I have this sitting out because I was going to, I love this.
Yeah.
This is so good. Miyoko's cheese is delicious. It's made out of nuts, mostly cashews. So if you're nut allergic. This is not your product, but this is a delicious cheese. And this is going to be soft though. So this is one of those things, Barb, I would definitely wait until tomorrow to style, to put out. And in fact, I might even pick a little dish like this to set it within, because it has the texture more of like a firm cream cheese.
Right.
So, I would save some kind of a little dish for it.
Okay. So just leave it whole. Don't try to make balls or anything out of it, or.
Well, you could make balls out of it. I mean, it has a really nice truffle flavor already. So you don't really need to be thinking about like, I've got to add flavor to it. So if you're going to put something on the outside, I might go for something like sesame seeds, something that doesn't have a huge, obviously sesame seeds are flavorful, but I think in this context, they'd be okay. But you will want to keep this pretty cold. Like mine's been out for a little while. And it's really soft.
Yeah,
So it is, honestly, it's the kind of cheese, like if I had a really delicious ripe camembert that was gooey, I honestly would save it for myself. But if I had to put it on a board, I would put it on a little plate on the board, because anytime you have something really soft like this that's gonna move, it's nice to have a walls for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So you could try the balls, but I would probably keep it in a container.
Okay.
Of some kind. Yeah. And that's a good choice. Your friend's going to love that. Or you, whoever.
Just don't tell them it's non-dairy.
That's right. We won't.
Okay.
There you go. She said it was really good.
Yeah.
Secret. A lot of the Miyoko stuff, I went to a big Humane Society party before the pandemic, obviously, because, I haven't done anything big, pretty much since then. And Miyoko's was one of the sponsors, and I didn't know it. This guy had these little, they were truffled scones with, I can't remember. They were so delicious. And I had to go up and get the recipe, and it was all Miyoko's. It was all, non-dairy stuff. So, okay. So another little hack that I love for these boards is I love for them to be some kind of honey or jam or sweet kind of dip that makes a nice contrast between all the richness that we have here, right? We've got all this very rich cheese, very rich cured meat. We'll put some vegetables in there to help with that as well. But I have in my pantry a bunch of pickled things and jams and little jars of fig jam and whatnot. So let me show you this. I put a little red pepper jam in this container, and I happen to notice that this container fits right in the middle of my snowflake. So I really like the way that looks. My cheese fell under there. But aside from red pepper jam, other choices could be honey, or any other kind of dip that you love. But I would look for something that's either a little spicy or a little acidic. I'm going to fill in with a little bit more greens there. So the first thing I like to do is place my cheese, because that's usually my what takes up the most space on my board. And because it's a wreath, I'm going to take my brie slices and make a little bow shape. Let's see if they'll stand up like a bow here. And I've lost them. Where did they all go? There they are. So I've put these guys into this little bow shape. And so what I'm aiming for is, smaller in the middle and fanning them out to the edge like this. And I will probably put one of my cute little red balls in the middle. Now I've got a little bow to start my, these are bothering me. The way these are sticking off the edge a little bit too much for me. And now maybe, the rule of thirds in design, right? So I've got this here. I'm going to go about a third of the way around my circle. And I'm going to set that sliced cheese. It's that really beautiful orange. And then I'm going to go over here about another third. And well, I've got 4 cheeses though, so I'm not going to be too precise on that. I'm going to put my little Jenga board here. So when you think about cheeses or meats, it's nice to think about at least 2, and you want to think of a contrast. Unless you're really into something, like there's no problem with only wanting to have goat cheese or only wanting to have brie. That's fine. But if you're looking for having more than that, then maybe you want to look for, again, contrast. So I've got, this one that's going to be aged and this one that's a little softer with this inclusion of the peppers in it. I've got some kind of traditional brie here. I've got my Parmesan that I'm going to kind of make a little, I just love the way that looks, that irregular look there. You move some of this out of the way. I'm going to just add those guys there. Move this out of the way. Now I still have some more of my little spice wrapped balls of cheese, but I think that I will wait to place those until I see what else is fitting on here. So I have my salami rose that I'll place on there. So I've got a big, something kind of big. And maybe I'll put in my things that I have on picks. I'll put them in the snowflake. So I'll put them kind of around the center here. And, oops. And another bow. I like this bow the best. This was kind of a reddish piece of salami in the pack. I don't know why one piece was a little bit more red. Put that in the front so you can see that. That's good cheese. Okay, so now I have placed my cheeses and my meats. Sorry, I had to try that cheese. This is a great place to fill in. Move these little scraps out of the way. And I have back here my, my big tray of wonders. So what I'm going to look for now is color. So I like that the cheese has some various colors and the meats have added, I didn't get very much of my meat on there, did I? The meats have added some nice color as well. So now I want to look for some crunch. And let's see. Sorry about that. I'm missing my prosciutto. What did I do with it? I know I didn't eat it yet. I'm going to fit my prosciutto in here. Got one more piece of salami. Let's see where I can stick. I'll figure out where to stick that in a little bit later. So I know that for me, I love pecans with brie. And I have I've got a few walnuts and pecans. I'm going to put some of the pecans by the brie because I think that will taste good. I think if people accidentally pick that up together, they'll be very happy. I like to spice my pecans. And so these particular pecans have a cinnamon and a little bit of cayenne pepper. I toss them in a little melted butter and the spice, and I put them in the oven, and that's all I do. I like walnuts with Parmesan, so I'm going to throw some walnuts in here around the Parmesan. A couple more pecans in there. My board is looking pretty full, but I can really make it abundant by adding some more color. And I'm just going to go with these red. I like to cut the tomatoes in half because I think they look more interesting on the inside than the outside. So I'm going to tuck a few of those in there. I am a huge radish fan. Like I said, I love these little organic tails that they have and these little green tops, which are also edible. I think they add a lot of color. So I'm going to cut this radish in half right through the green thing. So both halves have the green. And I will add some radish. And, if you've been eating on this board and you've been having all of this, pretty heavy cheese and meat, a little radish is kind of a delightful palate cleanser between them all, something a little fresh and crunchy. And I like to leave the tails on because I get these cute little wigglies that come up out of it. Put a couple more of those in here just because they look really nice. Let's see what else. Well, I talked a lot about my snap peas. I'm not sure that I love them with this. The other thing I could do with things like snap peas is I could put them in my cookie cutter and let them stick up. But I think I might serve those off to the side. I also don't have room on this particular platter because it's kind of small to put my crackers. So I've got these off in a bowl on the side as well. I have a huge love for these rainforest crisp crackers. If you haven't tried these, they have like nuts and dried fruit in the bread, and then they're dried crisp like a cracker. They go so well with cheese. So I'll probably put some of those out. And let's see, I think maybe, well, I fell in love with these little, here's the great thing about being the person who puts the board together is I've decided I don't love these little pieces in here. I'm going to put them out to the side because now I can't see my snowflake. I've kind of cluttered up my design so that I don't like the way it looks to my eye. I'm just going to move those around a little bit. I can tuck you in there. So I still got room for them here. There's still plenty for everybody to eat. I want that snowflake shape to still be visible. And then I found these adorable dark chocolate shortbread stars at Trader Joe's. And then my local grocery store had these ginger people. So there's one in a dress and one in pants. Although I like it when they say, like on the ladies' bathroom, that's a cape. There's a superhero ginger person and so just to kind of make it festive, I think I really like the way those stars look. So I tucked one in over here. It just looks really nice when I look down on it. Took a few more stars in here. It's nice to have like a bite. So, when I think about the purpose of this board, this probably is going to be not like just before dinner. This will probably be all I eat when I eat this. So now I've got a couple little yummy little chocolate things there at the end. I'm definitely going to have a giant glass of red wine with this. I think that would be delicious. Oh, olives. I mean, we could go olives. So in our suggested list, we said a couple kinds of olives, a couple kinds of nuts. But as you can see, that all becomes optional when you get your board filled. So I have so much out here. I could fill, probably 2 more boards, which is it's the whole point of it, right? We want to be abundant and this board, I really could just, saran wrap and put in the refrigerator until I was ready to, host my party and be ready to go. I might add things like nuts at the very end because they tend to get a little bit soggy in the refrigerator. But otherwise, that would be it. I don't think I set up an extra camera tonight, but I don't think it's even giving me really a better view. Here you can kind of see it from the side. You can see that I built up the height, right? So it's not all lying flat. So our eyes really like the height that comes with something like this. So it's definitely got height. So that is my board. So if I was making it on that big board, I could definitely make a giant, triangle shape and do a tree. If you did a giant triangle shape, you could make it into like a Santa hat. You could put all the white cheesy things at the bottom, and you could put the meats, which are a little bit more red, and add, red bell pepper and red tomatoes and all those things to kind of trim it up. There's lots of different festive shapes you could aim toward. But look, I haven't even used my raspberries. I'm going to have to think of something to do with like my golden berries. So. Great. Did you discover, buy a new cheese or buy a new meat that you haven't tried yet that you discovered that we should know about? I can wait for you to unmute. So
we have to show her ours?
Yes.
I'd love to see it.
You guys see it?
You want to see it?
You want
Yeah, I wanna
to?
see-
Those are some great
Let me put
tips,
this
some
on.
great ideas on.
a
Do you
different
wanna-
view.
Good.
Let's see.
On full screen?
Yeah, where's the?
I think it was.
Oh,
I'm going to spotlight you for everybody. There you go.
So what you want
Do
to
you
do?
want to take your camera and kind of let's see?
Well, we try to.
Yeah. We always recommend tilting your camera and not the platter because I've seen people lose that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you have
We got the
pomegranates.
rose.
We got the rose.
Yes,
did
good
it.
job.
A Jenga.
Nice.
Tried a couple of the skewers.
We tried to
Couple
do bow
skewers.
ties, but we don't have big enough olives.
Yeah, you have to get the ones you can stick your finger in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, or a smaller piece of meat, but yeah.
I just bought all sorts of stuff. I was in a cheese aisle and I was like, that looks good. That looks good.
That's the problem. That's why I end up with this giant tray in front of me. Like, that would be good.
We got a chocolate or no, a cocoa.
Oh, that cocoa washed. Yes, I love that.
I don't
That
know if
looks
it's getting
great.
rave reviews though.
Oh,
Is it? Okay. All right.
We don't want to hog all the camera time.
yeah, no, that's okay.
Let's
I
see
think-
yours, guys.
Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah. Got to get my mouse to move over there. What do you got, Barb? How are you looking? I know they're trying to make theirs for later, so maybe you don't have it built out. So this is optional. Nobody's making you share it. It's okay. Oh, there you go. Oh, it's a tree. You guys, let me get that. So I was looking at the wrong camera. They have to get, that is adorable.
Look
I
at
love
that.
Hey,
Beautiful. See, and then you've got your side plate there. So yeah, when you can't fit it all on one, I think both of you have been great. You've got two side plates. You've got the vegan side or the vegetarian side, and then you got your meats,
Nice.
meats and cheeses. I like that.
The pretzel sticks are the tree trunk.
Yeah. Oh, such a cute idea. That's really great. One of the great things about teaching these classes is I learn great things from everybody who comes in. Teresa's a great bread baker. Oh, you know what, Teresa, you advised me to bake my Thanksgiving rolls in advance and freeze them. And hallelujah, it worked out. I finally had homemade rolls for Thanksgiving for the first time. I was so happy. So thank you for that. Awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
Peggy,
ahead.
I ended up making 16 different kinds of breads
Oh my
for
gosh.
Thanksgiving week. So
They were delicious.
yeah, so freezing it's amazing. They
Yeah.
just still taste so fresh.
Oh yeah, they heated up beautifully, and it was
Yeah.
just. I was the happiest of everybody, just because it's been a long time goal of mine, is to somehow get that all done, and the rolls always fall off the edge. So
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad I'm so glad it worked well.
She's so happy. Oh, she can't see it.
oh, look at your cute little dish. I love that. When they eat the cheese out of that, they're going to find a snowman at the bottom.
Isn't that
Yeah.
adorable?
Or butter, or who knows what'll go on that.
Yeah. So
This has been great.
yeah, wonderful. Well, I'm really glad that you could all make it in. And we have every Friday this month, we're doing a little something like this. We've got some cocktails next week. So by the end of the hour, I'm going to be a little boozy because they're all cocktails I like. There's a pomegranate mule and there's some Jello shots. And I actually have extra cocktail tips to show you. So yeah, maybe we'll see you next Friday. And, you know, if you've got leftovers from your charcuterie plate, what you can do is put some charcuterie together before we start, and then we'll make cocktails, and then we'll just have a grand old time together.
That sounds like a perfect idea.
Yes, exactly. I feel like we should all be here right then. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for coming. It is really my pleasure. And maybe I will see you.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Happy holidays.
You too.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Wow. That was a lot.
Check us out.
Oh.
Now we eat.
Oh.
I know, I am too.